real music variety. 96.5 Inner FM.
And if you're real good, I'll make you feel good. I want your spirits to climb. Let me entertain you, and we'll have a real good time.
Welcome to Local Theatre on 96.5 Inner FM, a program in which your local theatre companies bring you up to date on their endeavours to entertain you. Hello, my name is Rob Morrison, presenting the program this week on behalf of Phoenix Theatre Company. And on today's local theatre program, it's my pleasure to welcome as my guest, respected actor, producer and director, Brian Crossley. This year marks the 50th anniversary of his first professional stage engagement. Are you on the line there, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's start at the very beginning, I suppose. This is the 50th anniversary of your first professional stage engagement. When did you first decide the acting career was for you?
When I came out of the army in 1948.
Oh, right. I suppose that'd be national service in those days, would it?
No, I was in the war.
Oh, dear.
50 years. I
Yes.
was 74 this year.
Oh. So were you in entertainment units during the war, or
No,
just in
no,
the conflict mainly?
No, it's a big joke with my father. I was with the Royal Engineers.
Oh, right.
Anybody less engineering-minded is me. I wouldn't know crack shank or anything. I wouldn't understand anything about a car. So it was that I wanted to do music, but I didn't do music. I went into the theatre.
Uh-huh.
And I went to drama school.
Yes.
And from there, during the war, I'd been stationed in Malvern, which is in the hills. That's on a palm, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I was stationed in Malvern in Worcestershire. And there was a very good Gilbert Sullivan company there in Malvern. And they did a production of Patience.
Yes.
And unbeknown to me, a member said, don't do Patience till Brian's out of the army because he's an ideal bunthorn.
Oh, right.
Wasn't that nice of them?
Indeed, yes.
And so I saw my very first Gilbert Sullivan opera with the Dorley Cart doing Patience because I didn't know anything about the opera.
Yes, yes.
Went back to the school and said, look, they've been asked me to play this role. So I went to my singing teacher there and he said, well, we better do something about this. So we did, and I was doing this performance of Patience, and unbeknown to me, the Dorley Cart were in Oxford,
Mm-hmm.
and this said person wrote to them and said, you should come and see this bloke.
Yes.
And they came.
All right.
Saturday matinee.
Mm-hmm.
There was Eleanor Evans, who was the director,
Yes.
and Bruce Worsley, the business manager. And they came backstage at the end of the afternoon show, and I knew nothing about this, of course.
Yes.
And said who they were, and I sort of said yes. And they said, we'd like you to join us. We're going to America in October. Can you be ready?
Oh.
That is the truth.
Yes.
So I had to go down to London to audition for Bridget Dorley Cart, and I did the Bunthorne aria song thing from Patience.
Yes, yes.
And so my very first job that I got earning money was to go to America with the Dorley Cart Opera Company.
Yes, quite a privilege.
What a joke that was.
Indeed. And of course they were very popular in America.
Immensely popular. I was amazed. I really was amazed. And we came back in 1951
Mm-hmm.
and did the Festival of Britain season at the Savoy.
Yes, yes.
I'm very old-fashioned because I love things like this tradition. You can't call yourself a Savoyard unless you play the Savoy Theatre.
All right, that's the specification.
Yes, the specification. So we did we played a 13-week season at the Savoy Theatre.
Yes.
With a different opera every week.
In repertory, yes.
Yes, and Sir Malcolm Sargent was our conductor every first night.
Well, that was quite a privilege. I think he was one of the first classical conductors to actually take an interest in Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes, we opened with the Mikado, which was traditional.
Yes.
And, of course, there's only one box in the Savoy Theatre in those days, and sitting in the box was Sir Winston Churchill, so got him on the list, went down very well indeed.
Indeed.
And then when we came to the last night of the season, we went back to the traditional, what they used to do in the old days of the Dorley Cart Opera Company, and that was we didn't know till we got into the theatre what we were going to be doing.
Yes.
So we had the overture to Yeoman of the Guard, Act One of the Gondoliers, and Act 2 of the Mikado.
Ah, right.
So you walked into your dressing room and thought, oh, we're going to do these operas tonight, are we?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know. You were all kept a dark, deep secret, and the audience didn't know either when they came.
So you wouldn't know what costumes and makeup
No.
you're putting on until the last minute?
Up to the last minute almost, yeah.
Oh.
So that was that. Now you're going to play something from these operas, aren't you?
Yes, indeed. A couple of the early recordings which I believe you took part in.
Oh, yes, and the one singing flat in the chorus. Yes, this was I only did 2 with them. I did Ireland and I did Patience.
Yes.
And this might interest you. In those days, I'd never done a recording before.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to the studio, and to my amazement, it was like a couple of microphones slung over the chorus.
Yes.
I really mean that literally.
Mm-hmm.
No high flute and things.
No testing for acoustics or anything, just
Nothing
shoved
like
in
that
there.
at all. You just sang.
Yeah.
So what you hear is what you get.
Indeed.
Yes. So could we hear that? Do you think what are we going to hear?
Oh, well, the first one on the list is Loudly Let the Trumpets Bray, the entrance and march of the Peers from Iolanthe.
Oh, good.
Well, here we go with the D'Oyly Card Opera Chorus, conducted by Isidore Godfrey.
Right, thank you.
96.5 Inner FM acknowledges the support of the following corporate sponsor. Eltham RSL, with 20 Tats Poker Machine gaming room and live entertainment every Wednesday night. The Gateway Bistro is open for dinner 6:30 to 9 p.m. Wednesday to Saturday, offering great food at prices you can afford. Thursday is pasta night with 2 courses, all you can eat for just $10. Eltham RSL, located at 804 Main Street, also has function room and facilities available for private hire, and new members and guests are always welcome. For inquiries and bookings, telephone 9439 7763.
And before the announcement there, we heard Loudly Let the Trumpet Spray and Entrance and March of the Peers, as sung by the Doylecart Male Chorus, conducted by Isidore Godfrey, and my guest today on this afternoon's local theatre programme is Brian Crossley, who actually sang amongst the chorus. Are you there, Brian?
Yes, I don't remember doing the hiccups in the middle of it.
Oh dear, well the hiccups. Oh, perhaps a bit of dust.
Youngsters, I've heard that.
Yes, indeed. Perhaps a bit of dust on the record then.
Was there ever?
Well, what are your memories of some of the personnel? I guess there were quite a few people there like Martin Green and Darryl Fancourt who'd been with the Doylecart for years.
Oh, yes, indeed they had. Margaret Mitchell and Joan Gillingham and, it was a heck of a lot. Leonard Osborne was the tenor.
Yes.
And, of course, this Eleanor Evans was Darryl Fancourt's wife.
Yes.
And she was the director, if you can call her that. Not a very popular lady.
I see.
It was an extraordinary company to work with. They're known as the Sunday School of the Profession.
Oh, right.
And strange enough, the chorus was the highest paid chorus in London next to Covent Garden in those days.
Oh, I see.
And they looked after you extremely well. I mean, when we went to America in 1950, which, by the way, I had my 24th birthday on board the Mauretania, middle of the Atlantic.
Oh, quite a celebration.
Oh, yes. They took you cabin class, which is like equivalent to first class coming out here.
Yes.
And when we got to New York, we were each given $100, irresponsible of our salary, to sort of get us through the first couple of days in America.
Oh, touring field.
So, I mean, they looked after you very well indeed in one way, but in another way they were a very untheatrical company.
Still, I suppose for being a future director yourself, it's sort of good experience to learn what not to do.
Oh, I learned a lot from watching Martin Green. He was marvellous. Do you know, on the last night, back in 51, he was allowed to make a speech on the last night. It was the first time ever anybody in the company had been allowed to make a curtain speech.
Yes.
And of course the audience went berserk, sort of don't leave us, and calling out and all this business.
Yes.
Because quite a few of us left in 51, thanks to Miss Evans. But I've got a lot to thank Gilbert and Sullivan for. I mean, they took me around England, around the UK and America and Canada.
Yes.
And when I came to Australia, I toured Australia and New Zealand with it, so it's done me. I do owe them a lot, but I don't possess one of their recordings in my collection.
Oh, I see. You had enough in the days of performing it live.
Well, I've done about 20 productions of them myself since then.
Yes.
But they were marvellous days. They were interesting days. But as I say, they were a very sort of... A few of us... Well, Richard Watson was in the company then. He used to play Pooh Bar. He was born in Adelaide.
Yes.
And he was a terrific guy. And... all in all, there were some very interesting people in it.
Yes.
It was good. We learned the operas in about 6 weeks or so. That was everything, all the 9 operas.
All right.
That was all I had to learn, all the singing, and I became Martin Green's third understudy to Martin Green.
Yes.
I had to learn those roles as well.
All the patter baritone roles.
Oh, yes.
The tongue-twisting songs.
And in the beginning of those days, you played a different opera every night. So the opening operas I ever did was Trial and Pirates.
Yes.
So that was 3 costume changes, and it was 2 weeks before we did that again, so you can imagine how you felt.
Yes.
And Mrs. Lord Godfrey said, well, I don't expect much out of you tonight, because I was virtually being pushed around the stage. Where do I go? What do I do?
Sort of joining in the back of the chorus.
So I left that company and freelanced, as they say in the classics, for a while. But I had some... we did a midnight matinee at Drury Lane.
Yes.
This is what they were like, that company. When we did a midnight matinee, it was for some big charity do. And it was a fabulous night. And we were taken there in a bus, and we did the finale of Gondoliers.
Yes.
And about 4 of us stayed. to watch the rest of the show.
Yes, yes.
The rest went home because it was rather late.
Oh, I see.
But I mean, we saw people like Edith Evans do a wonderful act. Dame Edith Evans reading from the London Telephone Directory. That was her act. It was marvellous.
Yes.
We had Vivian Lee and Laurence Olivier and Jack Buchanan singing a wonderful trio, twin, you know that thing?
Oh, the triplets.
Yeah, the triplet thing.
Yes.
It was, you know, B. Lilly was in the programme. It was I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Yes, it's
Gog standing in the wings thinking, my goodness gracious me, look at all these famous people.
And if you had to pay them, it would no doubt be millions of dollars in appearance fees.
Quite, yes. And I remember standing in the wings watching Vivian Lee, and this man came up to me and was standing next to me and said, who are you with? And I said, I'm with the Dorlicott Opera Company. And I looked around and it was Laurence Olivier, and I thought, oh heavens, what did I say to him? He just said, oh really, and walked away.
Oh, no Gilbert and Sullivan fan, obviously.
Blame him. So it was, that's quite exciting there. But that was what the company was like. I mean, in America, you know, we had a wonderful time. We were Eugene Normandy, the famous conductor of the Philadelphia.
Oh, the Philadelphia.
Was a great Gilbert and Sullivan fan.
Yes.
So every Friday concert, afternoon concert, we were in Philadelphia for a month. Richard Watson and I and Richard's wife Joyce, we went along to a concert and we were given tickets, where would you like to sit today, sort of thing.
Yes, yes.
And the rest of the company never did anything like that. Only made things like me that I'm going to miss this for the world.
Indeed, oh well, yes.
And in New York, they fainted when I spent the afternoon watching Gotterdammerung at the Met with Legstad. 1 o'clock that started and came round the corner to play Mikado that night. They said, you've been at the matinee all day long. I said, well, yes, it was Flagstaff. Oh, she took the thing up with, oh, gosh, golly.
All right, she did sing Gilbert and Sullivan, so they didn't want to know.
So that was that.
Well, we'll pause here for a moment and let us hear memories of Martin Green, who, according to my notes, joined the Dorlicott in 1922. Then became understudy to the comedian in 1926, Henry Lytton at the time, and was principal from 1934 onwards, apart from the war years, and appeared
in the Air Force.
Yes, and appeared in film versions of the Mikado, which still pops up on ABC TV these days.
Yes.
And The Story of Gilbert and Sullivan in 1952.
And he wore a monocle.
Oh, yes, indeed. Came in handy for the Major General, no doubt.
No doubt.
Well, here is Martin Green, perhaps a little past his prime, recorded in 1962 with June Bronhill.
I never heard this.
Well, this is a commercial recording long after it left the Dorlicott, and this is I Have a Song to Sing-O from the Yeoman of the Guard.
Lovely.
I have a song to sing, oh.
Sing me your song, oh.
It is sung to the moon by a lovelorn loon who fled from the mocking throng, oh. It's a song of a merry man moping mum, whose soul was sad and whose glance was glum, who sipped no sup and who craved no crumb as he sighed for the love of a lady. Hey, misery me, lack-a-day-dee. He sipped no sup and he craved no crumb as he sighed for the love of a lady.
I have a song to sing, oh.
What is your song, oh?
It is sung with the ring of the songs made sing, who love with a love life long, oh. It's the song of a merry maid, peerly proud, who loved a lord and who laughed aloud at the moan of the merry man moping mum, whose soul was sad and whose glance was glum, who sipped no sup and who craved no crumb as he sighed for the love of a lady. Lady, lady, misery me, lack-a-day-dee. He sipped no sup and he craved no crumb as he sighed for the love of a lady.
I have a song to sing, oh.
Sing me your song, oh.
It It is sung to the knell of a churchyard bell and a doleful dirge ding-dong. Oh, it's the song of a popinjay bravely born, who turned up his noble nose with scorn at the humble merry maid peerly proud, who loved a lord and who laughed aloud at the moan of the merry man moping mum, whose soul was sad and whose glance was glum, who sipped no sup and who craved no crumb, as he sighed for the love of a lady. Lady, lady, misery me, lack-a-lady. He sipped no sup and he craved no crumb, as he sighed for the love of a lady.
I have a song to sing, oh.
Sing me your song, oh.
It is sung with a sigh and a tear in the eye, for it tells of a right and wrong. Oh, it's a song of the merry maid once so gay, who turned on a heel and tripped away from the peacock popinjay bravely born, who turned up his noble nose with scorn at the humble heart that he did not prize. So she begged on her knees with downcast eyes for the love of the merry man moping mum, whose soul was sad and whose glance was glum, who sipped no sup and who craved no crumbs, he sighed for the love of a lady. Lady, lady, misery me, lack-a-lady. His pains were o'er and he sighed no more, for he lived in the love of a lady. Lady, lady, misery me, lack-a-lady. His pains were o'er and he sighed no more, for he lived in the love of a lady.
Your local station, Inner FM 96.5, appreciates the assistance of Ian Graham Glass Art Australia, engraved glass and crystal for corporate, sporting and family occasions, of 67 Kelvin Avenue, Montmorency. Telephone 94341761. Proprietor Ian Graham. Fax 94341761. Another valued sponsor of Inner FM, Melbourne.
If your back is pretty crook and you don't know where to look for some help to get you leaping out of bed, then call Chiropractic Works. Healthcare with all the perks. They'll help you to feel 21 again. Chiropractic Works, 370 Lower Plenty Road, Viewbank. Phone 9457 5200 for more information or to book time for a no-obligation assessment. Chiropractic Works, serving the health needs of our community and sponsoring 96.5 Inner FM.
And before the announcements there, we heard Martin Green with June Bronhill singing I Have a Song to Sing-O from the Yeomen of the Guard with the orchestra conducted by Cyril Ornadell. And both of those people had some influence in your life. I'm speaking to Brian Crossley, who was a member of the D'Oyly Cart in the early 50s.
Yes, indeed. It's interesting when they're recording, when Martin used to record the patter songs, he was allowed a microphone on his own, and he just whispered it into the microphone.
Yes.
That's why it came out so clear.
So he didn't have to project his voice as he would in the theatre.
Very softly sang it. It was marvellous. And Darryl Fancourt, God bless him, when he did his, he had to have a microphone on his own because you could never sing any of the songs he did without all the actions.
Oh.
So you needed room when Darryl was recording.
Yeah. No doubt he'd been doing them from so long. Well, apparently he joined the D'Oyly Cart in 1920, so some 34 years doing the same roles.
By 1950 he got one glass eye and his teeth were very loose, so it was hysterical to watch, but it was wonderful. And nobody's ever said dear, dear, dear in the Ricardo like Darryl has. I can't even do it. It just was wonderful how he used to say dear, dear, dear.
Oh, and his laugh during the Mikado song too.
Yes.
Well, moving on from the D'Oyly Cart, then you went into musical comedy, I believe.
Well, as I said, I was auditioning and for everything in London, and of course, I don't know whether it's the same now, but I mean, when you auditioned just for chorus things and whatnot.
Yes.
And in those days, you used to go along and stand in a line up, right across the stage, maybe 150 of you, and they'd come along and say to the left, and go to the right, please, go to the right, go to the left, and you'd sort of all go to your respective corners, and then he would tell that those on the left could go, and they lined you all up again and went at it again.
All right.
So it was quite an experience.
Yes.
One thing because you're a GNS person, you'll love, but they did a show in London called Wish You Were Here, which was set round a swimming pool.
Oh, right, yeah, Harold Rome, I think.
Yes,
yes.
it was a ghastly show. And, well, the pool was clear, nice and clean on a Monday, but by Saturday night it was a bit icky. And to audition for this, the girls had to wear bathing suits and bikinis,
yes.
and the men had to wear a swimming costume.
Yes.
Just to see if they got a decent body. Well, of course, I didn't audition, but I was at the auditions with some other friends, and this man came on the stage in a pair of lovely British woolen bathers, which have to be seen to be believed.
Yes. Oh, my grandfather had a pair. It's got a little discreet flap at the front.
Oh, no, nothing like that. Not this one. That was quite daring.
Oh, I see.
And then he wore, to complete the ensemble, he had his shoes on and his stockings with suspenders. And he sang, are you ready?
Yes.
Take a pair of sparkling eyes. Well, I'm afraid I had to run out of the theatre because I was hysterical by that stage.
Some of the other Goon Show, almost.
It was unbelievable. And I've been auditioning and trying for everything, including Paint Your Wagon. But I mean, if anybody knows me, I'm no cowboy-looking guy.
Yes. Yes.
And because they were looking for types, didn't matter whether you could sing, dance, or anything, as long as you looked like a cowboy, you were in.
Yes, yes.
Finally, there's a show going on in London called Gaze the Word, which was Ivor Novello's last show.
Yes.
And in it starred Cicely Courtnidge, who you know was born in Sydney.
Yes.
And it was going to go on a tour and then come back to London. And I thought, oh, well, I'll go and try for this. Well, my party piece was from Call Me Madam, It's a Lovely Day Today. That was my party piece.
Oh, right, yes.
So I went along for this audition. This is I got into the Dawley Car by a fluke. People came to see me do Bunthorne.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I got a write-up which makes Dennis Olsen very green. What did it say? It said, Brian Crossley managed to look like Shakespeare, pose like Wilde, dance like Helpman, and sing like an operatic tenor. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Indeed.
So anyway, going back to Gaze the Word, I was standing on the stage and singing my famous number. Mm-hmm. Jack Hulbert was, Cicely Courtnidge's husband. He was directing it.
Yes.
And he was in the auditorium. And then it has a nice little E note, which I took quite well in the song. And at that precise moment, there was this dirty great big clap of thunder outside. Mm-hmm. And I said, sotto voce, God, what a voice. And I went on singing. Then I finished it, and this Jack Hulbert's voice said, don't go, and came down to the front. I always remember this. Mm-hmm. And he said, what did you say? I said, pardon, sir. He said, what did you say in the middle of that song? You said something. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. I said, he said, when you took that high note, you said something. What did you say? I said, I just said, God, what a voice. I said, you're in. You've got a sense of humour. And I stood on that stage when the stage manager came up to me and said, will you come and... I said, am I in? I couldn't believe it. And that's how I got into Gaze the Word.
Oh, right. And what was Cicely and Jack like to work for?
Well, he was marvellous, but she was just stunning. I mean, I learnt so much from that woman. She was a mistress of timing and comic. Mm. Oh, she was my first, what I call, real leading lady.
Yes, yes.
A legend, absolute legend of a woman. And of course, it's interesting for me because, I mean, I'd always loved Ivor Novello's shows, and I'd seen them all as a child.
Yes.
I fell in love with them. And this was sort of this show was sort of, he sent himself up in this show.
Yes, it was a change of direction, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was written for her, for Cicely Courtnidge.
Yes.
And it was very theatrical, and he sent himself up with tunes that we sang, a parodies of his own songs. And he began with a sort of this glamorous opening with all of the men in hussars' costumes and all the girls with big picture hats, and there was trellis work and flowers and swirling mists and God knows what else.
Yes.
And she came on as a hussar and sang the first number, and then the curtain came down and it went up again, and she's standing there with a bunch of flowers thanking the audience for being so wonderful.
Yes.
And she said, one night she said, it's all right until we get north of Birmingham, and then they'll think it's the end of the show. And sure enough, when we got to Leeds, it was like that. And the curtain came down and went up again, and she was thanking them for being such a wonderful audience, and good night and God bless you. You could see the audience sort of go, it's been a short show, But she was an amazing lady. She did so many... And I'm sidetracking and getting excited. What happened in this company was many of the old people that had worked with Ivor's shows for years and years and years. And you see, Ivor, if he liked you and your work, you were never out of work.
Yes, yes.
Because you just went from show to show, and as you got older and older as the show went on.
Oh, yes, he had his repertory company, didn't he?
Yes, almost like that.
Yes.
So I used to stand on the stage with all these well-known people that had been a name to me, and I used to stand there thinking, my golly gosh, here I am standing with all these famous people. But it was amazing. And it was a good show. We ended up coming back to London and did my first TV.
Oh.
A BBC TV for Boxing Day.
Yes, yes.
And she was terrified of television, was Cicely.
Oh, that's amazing. Well,
Yes.
she made all the films in the 30s, but I suppose you're not live.
Well, it was a different thing to doing television. This wasn't live, but it was sort of doing a new venue and running from studio to studio.
Yes.
Because they had to do the sets and things. But it was a good company. The Thorley Waters was in it, and some of the listeners might remember him from...
Oh, Sherlock Holmes, I think.
Yes,
On. Yeah.
and Liz Webb was the girl, and Dunstan Hart. Now, he was the romantic lead years ago, and he ended up playing this rather roue-type character in this show.
Yes, yes.
But in this show, she did a number called Vitality, which was the finale of Act 1.
Which we'll play in a moment, yes.
Yes, which was... I mean, this is what's so clever. I mean, we worked our socks off in this number, dancing and singing and carrying on like two-bob watch.
Yes.
And she stood in the middle doing little arm actions. And of course, by the end of the performance, everyone said, "Isn't she marvellous?" She used to walk off the stage. We used to collapse in a heap.
You were doing all the work and she was doing the arm movements.
Can we hear her do it?
Yes. Oh, certainly.
Good.
Well, let's hear Cicely Courtnidge with Vitality from Gaze the Word.
Vitality. It matters more than personality, originality, or topicality, for it's vitality that made all those top-liners tops. Vitality. They each had individuality, but in reality, their speciality was a vitality enough to make hits out of flops. They could knock you for six. They had vigor and drive. They'd no microphone tricks. They were live vitality. The stars who gained our immortality knew with finality the practicality of something that's lacking in us. They all had vitality plus. Do you remember Gertie Miller? You wouldn't, I'm afraid. Maury Lloyd and Vesta Tilley's swagger cave. Lily Elsie as the widow, Josie Collins as the maid, dear old Roby, Billy Merson at the lane. Some gone, and some who still are the tops of any bill. Give me Gracie Fields in place of any crooner. Hetty King, still debonair, Phyllis Dare and Zena Dare. G.H. Eliot in the Lily of Laguna. Let the charm school keep on charming. Let the Bobby Soxers spawn. If you want to see vitality, see Dorothy and Sean.
Vitality. It matters more than personality, originality, or topicality, or its vitality that made all those top-liners tops. Vitality. They each had individuality, but in reality, their speciality was a vitality enough to make hits out of flops. All the stars of the past are remembered today, and the reason they lost, they were gay.
Vitality. The stars who gained our immortality knew with finality the practicality of something that's lacking in us. They all had vitality plus. They They had vigour, they were bigger, they had wonderful attack. They were workers, never shirkers, never blasé, never slack. They could thrill you, they could fill you with their energy and verve. They were servants of the public, and by golly did they serve. They were singers who were singers, nothing canned, nothing tinned. They were artists to the fingertips. Oh, I'm getting short of wind. They were zealous, they were jealous of the fame that they had won. They were vitally entitled to their stardom, they were fun. And if you think that their vitality has vanished, well, that's rot. There's a certain Mr. Churchill who's still got quite a lot. And if you're getting really personal, I think that you'll agree, as a sample and example of vitality, there's me.
Vitality, there's nothing greater than immortality. You win vitality, the practicality of something that's lacking with us. They all have vitality.
All had vitality.
All have vitality plus.
And that was Cicely Courtnidge with Vitality, which I guess more or less sums up Cicely herself.
Did you hear me?
Which one were you?
Oh, the third chorus on the right.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's a funny show because you change costumes constantly throughout the show.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have time in the interval to sit down and have a cup of tea. You were sort of changing into another bit of tracks to go on.
Well, keep you very fit, no doubt, I guess.
Oh,
You
yeah.
wouldn't need to exercise.
No, not then. She was an amazing lady. We used to, the curtain used to come down. She used to come down in this lovely gown, just for the curtain call. It was a Pierre Balmain gown.
Yes, yes.
And that was just to take a curtain call in.
All right, just for the curtain call.
Then down would come the curtain. We had to stand on the stage. We weren't allowed to leave until the national anthem had been played.
All right. Uh-huh.
And then she would take out this piece of paper from her bosom and sort of say, your hair needs cutting, your nails are dirty. She'd go round the cast.
Oh, dear.
But it wasn't done in a nasty way.
Yes,
You
yes.
couldn't fool that woman. She was an amazing woman.
Just keeping the standards up.
Oh, she was a leading lady. It was her show, and it had to be up spot on every bloody time she did it, pardon my French, but it had to be there all the time. It had to be really good.
Yes, it's amazing to, do the lines and the songs and to keep track of everything
And
like that.
she couldn't bear, in those days, they did it here, but they used to have afternoon tea served in the interval.
Yes.
They bring down trays of tea for customers
I went to the actual auditorium.
into the auditorium, and that wasn't allowed. And there's one performance where it's somewhere up north, and down came the trays of tea, and she's singing Vitality. They're bringing down the trays of tea, and calling for the manager in the song.
Oh, dear.
Not missing a beat. But she was a great lady. She did some wonderful, little things that you don't forget. If I had another birthday, like we always have, and this time we're travelling on a train call from Edinburgh to Newcastle.
Yes.
Or vice versa, I can remember now.
Yes.
So the kids in the company, we came onto the train. Oh, by the way, you weren't allowed to wear, you had to wear decent, you weren't allowed to wear jeans when you left the town.
Oh, bad impression, I guess.
You had to wearing slacks for the boys, and if you could change when you got on the train.
All right.
Or when you got off where you were playing, you had to look decent.
Yes.
This came about because she was once in New York doing one of those shows that she did.
Oh, Under the Counter or
Something like that. And she went to a matinee and saw Eddie Cantor.
Yes.
This is true, it's in her book. And she was a rainy day, so she had this old raincoat on and an umbrella and whatnot, and she's sitting in the auditorium watching him, and he said that we have it today in our company, in the audience, we have one of England's leading comedians.
Yes.
And brought her up on the stage, and she'd never forgotten that because she looked so terrible
All right.
on the stage.
Just in her casual wear.
So we were never allowed that. So anyway, to go back to this train call, I got into the carriage and they decorated the carriage up in the compartment and all this business. And it was great fun. And then suddenly the business manager came along, so Brian, Miss Courtnidge is in the dining car, she wants to see you. And I thought, oh, I'm in the poos now.
Oh, dear.
It's so terrible. So I go down to see her, and she just said, sit down. She said, that's your birthday, I hear. I said, yes, it is. So she made me have a cup of coffee with her.
Yes.
And she gave me £25.
Oh, well, quite a treat in
To
those
buy.
days.
Yeah, and I was just a chorus boy.
Indeed.
To buy something useful.
Yes.
But that's what she was like. She looked after her company.
Yes, yes.
She was a lovely woman.
Indeed. Yes.
So that was my introduction to Ive Novello and Cicely Courtnidge. And then I came to Australia.
Well, indeed.
In 1954.
Ah, right. Well, what were your experiences or first impressions of Australia when you first came here?
Oh, I thought it was marvellous. And I joined what is now the Melbourne Theatre Company. That's the Union Theatre Company in those days.
Yes.
And worked with notables like Barry Humphries and Noel Ferrier and Zoe Caldwell.
Oh, right, yes.
And Freddie Parslow. And we did all... Oh, it was incredible.
Under John Sumner, was it?
Yes.
The director at the
So
time.
I was there for the opening night of Summer the 17th Doll.
Oh, right.
And Ray Lawler used to direct us. He was a lovely guy.
Yes.
And he still is. And he couldn't get over the fact that we were all laughing at this show. He didn't realise he'd written such a funny play, such a deliciously humorous play.
Yes, with, what's her name, Emma, the mother of the household?
Yes.
With
And
her
of course, June Jago and Roma Johnson was the other, was Pearl.
Yes.
And Noel was in that. Noel Ferrier was in that.
Yes, Barney or Roo or one of those?
He was the big one, Barney.
Yes.
Is that the big one, Barney, or is he Roo? No, he's Roo, isn't he?
I think it's Barney. It's years since I've seen it too.
Yes. So that was that, and then it was while I was on tour with that with the MTC doing a Council of Adult Education.
Yes.
We went out on tour. We took 12th Night was the first one I did with them.
The Shakespeare, of course.
Yes, Shakespeare. I'm laughing because when we got to, you used to have a bun fight at the end of every show, you know, in that route. We used to call it a bun fight.
A big supper.
Yes, a big supper was laid on for us all, you see.
Yes.
And we were playing Warrnambool, and the Lord Mayor at the time got up and made a speech thanking us all for giving up our time for coming to do this show. Get that? And
it wasn't your day job, in other words.
Yes, exactly. That's quite true. This Zoe Caldwell, I mean, you know Zoe Caldwell, do you?
Oh, yes, she went to Broadway, didn't she?
In New York,
came back from Medea.
And she was marvellous. Yes. They asked her, you know, what does she normally do? And she said, well, she was a laboratory attendant at Flinders Street Station. Oh, really? And then they don't, you know, I'm not knocking country people at all because they're absolutely fabulous. I mean, the children, we played children's matinees. Well, they knew the show.
Yes.
They knew the play, so they laughed.
Yes.
But when the night time came and we had the adults there, it was culture they were seeing, so of course she didn't laugh.
Oh, right.
I wish they'd liven up a bit. You get how sort of these bun fights. This lady came up to me one day, she looked at me, she said, how do you know when it's your turn to speak?
Oh, dear.
You think I'm joking?
Yes.
I'm not. And I said, well, there's usually a pause. I think I better say something. So I said, oh.
Not very used to theatre, obviously, out in the country, back blocks.
So they came up and looked at you again and looked you really serious in the face and said, you know, you look better on stage than off. Very flattering. And it was when I was on another tour with them doing Arms and the Man, the George Bernard Shaw play,
yes.
that this is 56 now, and Williamson's were going to do a Gilbert Sullivan season.
Yes.
For the Olympics and all that business.
Oh, of course, yes.
And Richard Watson, unbeknown to me, was in Australia, and he was going to be in the company, and he asked, you know, anybody got in touch with me, you know. And anyway, to cut a boring story short, they phoned me up and wrote me a letter and said, would you come and join us?
Yes.
And become Graham Clifford's understudy. So that's how I came to do that season with Williamson's playing. I played the roles for far more. Well, I never got on with Martin Green. The only role I ever did with a Doily Cart was the Major in Patience.
Yes.
And that's the first time I went on for that was in Boston, America, when this wonderful director we had came and looked at me. I mean, there we are in the Opera House, Boston, which is a vast place.
Yes.
And I was a little nervous, my first time on.
Yes.
And she just looked at me from top to down and said, well, I suppose you'll do.
Oh,
walked away, which is great help. You know,
indeed, yes.
So we come to, jumping back to Australia, we come to Williamson's season. So I joined the company. They'd already started rehearsals when I joined because I was still had to finish off Arms on the Man.
Yes, yes.
And the first opera we did was, it's extraordinary, that was 1950, so 6 years had passed since I'd done the operas.
Yes.
And we did Trial and Pirates, was my first music call, and I couldn't believe how not only the words, but the melodies came back to me.
Oh, it had been so drilled into you that it was
Absolutely.
second nature.
I mean, once you never done things, you never forget them.
Hmm.
And that was we had a wonderful time with that because Muriel Brunskill was in that.
The great contralto.
Oh, she was the only English woman at Covent Garden in the German season pre-war.
Yes.
And what a voice she had. But that's right. First of all, going back to the Iolanthe, we were playing in Sydney, and it was the second night of Iolanthe. It was the Majesty's Theatre in Sydney.
Yes.
And I'd rehearsed. I knew the chorus work, and I hadn't rehearsed. I'd gone through Act 1 once as the Lord Chancellor.
Yes.
So that's all. You know, Iolanthe Act 1, there's Phyllis and Strephon on, and then comes on the Piers chorus.
Yes.
Well, while that's all going on, I was dressed as... I insisted on being in the chorus because I didn't want to be walking understudy because I think that's boring.
Yes, indeed.
And so I'm dressed as a peer, thank goodness, with the character makeup on, and I'm called to the wings to be told that Mr. Clifford wasn't there, and I had to go on.
Oh, dear.
As Lord Chancellor.
Yes.
So I'm immediately stripped of my peer's costume and put in the Lord Chancellor's costume.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can vaguely remember about that going on was, first of all, Leo Packer, who was conducting, had the shock of his life when I walked on. And the peers, I've never seen a group of men looking so terrified.
Where did he come from?
Is he going to make it? And you know, these songs, I knew the songs, I got on all right with the songs.
Yes.
And then it came to the first lot of dialogue, and it was Terence O'Donoghue and Eric Thornton were the two peers.
Yes.
And they talk about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I made up this huge speech about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on and on and on, and Terence O'Donoghue was just looking at me, and I finally said sort of urged him, for God's sake, speak! Oh, yeah, my lord. And afterwards he apologised profusely. He said, but it all made sense.
Oh, you ad-libbing it all.
Ad-libbing the whole thing. When I didn't direct too, that was Richard Walker was the director of those shows, another character, whoever there was one.
Oh, yes.
Who suggested that I could do Act 2 and he'd stand behind the sentry box and prompt me if I needed it as a nightmare song. Can you imagine? If you're lying awake, what's next? Oh, 2 hours later it's gone.
Yeah.
And that was known as Black Friday.
Oh, indeed. Quite an experience. Well, we might pause here and hear Richard Watson himself. And this is Richard Watson.
No, that was Richard Walker, the director. Richard Watson. What have we got him doing?
The judge's song from Trial.
Oh, he's a delicious judge, he was.
Mm-hmm. Did he sing this particular role in Australia?
Oh, yes, rather. He was Pooh Bah and all those roles.
Ah, right. Well, let's hear right now Richard Watson with the judge's song.
Good.
For these kind words accept my thanks, I pray. A breach of promise we try today. But firstly, if the time you'll not begrudge, I'll tell you how I came to be a judge. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak. Good friends was called to the bar. I'd an appetite fresh and hearty, for I was as many young barristers are, an impecunious party. I'd a swallow-tailed coat of a beautiful blue, a brief which I bought of a booby, a couple of shirts and a collar or two, and a ring that looked like a ruby. A couple of shirts and a collar or two, and a ring that looked like a ruby. Mr. Hall, I danced a dance like a semi-despondent fury, for I thought I never should hit on a chance of addressing a British jury. But I soon got tired of third-class journeys and did as a bread and water. So I fell in love with the rich attorney's elderly, ugly daughter. So I fell in love with the rich attorney's elderly, ugly daughter. The rich attorney, he jumped with joy and replied my fond professions.
It's with the reward if you pluck, my boy, the baby in Middlesex sessions. You soon get used to her look, said he, and a very nice girl you'll find her. She may very well pass for 43 in the dusk with the light behind her. She may well pass for 43 in the dusk with the light behind her. The rich attorney was good as his word, and briefs came to being gaily, and every day my voice was heard at the sessions or ancient Bailey. All thieves who could my fees afford relied on my orations, and many a burglar I've restored to his friends and his relations. Many a burglar he's restored to his friends and his relations. At length I became as rich as the Gurneys, and incubus then I thought her. So I threw over that rich attorney's elderly, ugly daughter. The rich attorney, my character high, tried vainly to disparage. No. Yes. And now, if you please, I'm ready to try this breach of promise of marriage. And now, if you please, it's ready to try this breach of promise of marriage. For now I'm a judge. Yes, now I'm a judge. Though all my lobby fudge and never budge, but I'll never die a judge. It was managed by a job. It was managed by a job. It is patent to the mob that my being made a nude was effected by a job. And a nude
And that was Richard Watson and the D'Oyly Carte Opera Chorus with the judge's song from Trial by Jury.
He's a marvellous man.
Indeed. I believe he went to Canada as a music professor at one
Yes,
stage.
he did. Yes, he and his wife were lovely. They took me under their wing when I joined the company. A lot to them both. And then what else? Where are we now? Nearly time to finish.
Oh, yes, we're only halfway through your career, but I suppose 50 years you've done a lot. I suppose people of my generation would remember you for one very famous role on television, a children's fantasy program, which I suppose you've never really lived down. And that was, of course, Adventure Island, where you were the Panto Dame role of...
Panto Dame? I was no Panto Dame.
Oh, sorry, a bit more...
I ran the local shop.
The respectable shopkeeper by the name of Flowerpots.
Yes, Mrs. Flowerpots.
Mrs. Flowerpots. Although we never found out what happened to your husband.
Oh, I know.
Oh, you did?
He went out for a loaf of bread and never came back.
Oh, I see, right.
That's what happened to him. They were the happiest 5 years of my life.
Ah, indeed.
It was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful show.
Working with such people as Liz Harris and John Michael Housen, Colin McEwen, Ernie Bourne, Nancy Cato, I think, and later Sue Donovan, wasn't it?
Yes, and then yes, you said Ernie Bourne, yes, you did indeed, and Jack Manuel.
Mm-hmm.
They were terrific days for those. I loved doing that. I'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah. Oh, so you hadn't had experience at Panto or anything like that? Or?
Never played drag in my life before.
Oh.
I mean, I was taken out to lunch and asked to be in the show, and they said they'd like me to join. This was with Godfrey Phillips.
Yes.
And I said, yes, I was interested. He said, the part's Flower Pots, and I imagined this funny little old man. He said, Mrs. Flower Pots. I said, I beg your pardon. Mrs. Flower Pots. So...
Did you ever find out? Did you ever find out why he thought you were the logical choice?
No, I'm not going to answer that.
All right.
That's for me to know and you to think about.
Indeed. Well, I suppose we have time just for one more track, and
I want to hear Dennis. I did over 20 productions with Dennis doing Gilbert and Sullivan operas. Dennis Olsen.
Oh right. Well, I have got GNS, but the one I've got queued up is Together with Music, which
could I have a matter of minutes?
A matter of minutes. Certainly, right.
This is back to... This made my debut when I was a dancer in Gaze the Word.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Right, well, we might have to pause for a cart and then I'll cue the record up to play A Matter of Minutes.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, well, let us go to a community service announcement.
Right.
If you're going down Port Arlington Way, it's the place to stay across the bay, the Port Arlington Beach Motel, where they have 11 luxury units, all tastefully furnished, fully air-conditioned with family rooms, an executive suite, and also a heated swimming pool, solar heated, and a barbecue area, and much, much more. It's a very friendly place, hosted by Mandy Burns, and if you'd like to go down there, just contact them on 03 5259 3801. 03 5259 3801, and their address is 153 Newcomb Street in Port Arlington. Proud sponsors of Inner FM, the Port Arlington Beach Motel.
And now let's hear Dennis Olsen with A Matter of Minutes, which came from the stage show The Masters. Well, initially came from Gaze the Word.
5 minutes ago, I stammered and stuttered. The few words I uttered just didn't make sense. 5 minutes ago, the rain pitter-pattered and nothing else mattered as my share of despair was immense. However strange it seems, there's been a change it seems, and life is no longer a botch. My every doubt has gone, the sun came out and shone 5 minutes ago by this watch. A matter of minutes and thrushes and linnets are singing where none sang before. I'm clearly, severely, sincerely in love, and I couldn't be loving it more. A matter of minutes since you wandered in, it's a miracle labeled express. I'm immensely, intensely, and densely in love, and I couldn't be hating it less. 5 minutes ago I was deep in the slough of despair or the slough, a spot of romance chance to creep in, and just take a look at me now. A matter of minutes, but once you begin, it's a feeling you simply adore. I'm fairly and squarely and rarely in love, and I couldn't be loving it more. If there's still any doubt, may I once more point out, at the risk of becoming a bore, I'm not likely or slightly, but rightly in love, and I couldn't be loving it more. I couldn't be loving it more. On the chin, it's a knockout, I'm flat on the floor. I'm neatly, repletely, completely in love, and I couldn't be loving it more. I couldn't be loving it more.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much. I've enjoyed that. Anytime you like.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, well, it has indeed been a delight to speak to you on today. And as I said, well, we've only really covered a very small fraction of a 50-year career.
When I talk to people like this that I realise what I've done, which is a bit terrifying. And I realise what I haven't done. It's even more terrifying.
So you're still active these days in producing, directing?
I hope to get back to it next year. Because I haven't been the best at the moment, but I hope to get back to it next year.
Yes, yes. Friends have taken part in production of, I think, HMS Pinafore on the Pollywood side sailing vessel that you were responsible for.
That was interesting. That was lovely. That was good. I enjoyed that. Did you see it?
No, I didn't, but I heard about it.
Yes.
Quite an experience, no doubt.
It was, and it went very well. I was amazed.
So you had all the sailors up and down the guy ropes?
Yes, they did, up and down. They all came dashing up on the stage during the overture and climbed the things and whatnot. And I say it myself, it looked very good. There was a wonderful night when it was all lit up and the moon was shining, and I've got a photograph of that, and it really looks excellent. And we packed the place. We played Wednesday to Saturday. And we did, I forget how many, I think We only missed one show, and I think it was the last night when it absolutely poured with rain and we couldn't do it. But it went very well.
Yes, indeed.
Are we off the air now?
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet.
Weren't dive bombed by flying foxes or anything like that. Who apparently mess up in some of the productions they do in the botanical gardens, I hear.
Oh, yeah. No, we didn't have that. We just had a few porpoises come and visit us or dolphins.
Well, it has been my delight on today's program to speak to Brian Crossley to look back on some of the highlights of his past career. Thank you for joining me on air to speak to the listeners on today's local theatre program, Brian.
Thank you very much indeed. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. And so now it's about time for the closing announcements, because coming up at 5 o'clock we have this week's edition of That's All Folk with Colin.
It's 96.5 Inner FM.
You have been listening to the local theatre program presented this week by Rob Morrison on behalf of Phoenix Theatre Company. This program is heard every Sunday between 4 and 5 p.m, so join us next week when another in our company shall present the program, and in the meantime, why not take your place in the local theatre? Bye for now.